What people today don't consider when they think about the U.S. Civil War is that it was the first media war. Matthew Brady chronicled the events through his photography. People actually showed up to watch the Battle of Fort Sumter, and reporters chronicled everything. That's important background for the clip that you'll be watching in a couple of minutes here. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain was the president of Bowdoin College in Maine, and when the war broke out, he went to his board of trustees and asked for their permission to enlist. They told him, "No, you are too valuable to us here." A few weeks later, Chamberlain consulted with his trustees again and told him that he'd like a sabbatical so that he could go and study in France. Yeah, France, that's the ticket. And the trustees agreed. So he enlisted in the Army. Now, because Chamberlain was an educated man, he was commissioned as an officer, a colonel. And shortly before the Battle of Gettysburg began, on July 1st, 1863, Chamberlain was given custody of 107 deserters, soldiers who had broken ranks and tried to go back home. Now, the clip that you'll be watching is from the 1993 film Gettysburg. The film is based on the Michael Shara book, The Killer Angels. And when I said that the U.S. Civil War was the first media war, here's why that's important. Shara found two kinds of sources for this speech. First, Chamberlain's own record of the events, and the notes of the reporters who jotted everything down as it happened. Now, here's why that matters. This is Chamberlain's speech that day, literally word for word.
You men, gather round. I've been talking with Private Buckland. He's told me about your problem. There's nothing I can do today. We're moving out in a few minutes. We'll be moving all day. I've been ordered to take you men with me. I'm told that, that if you don't come, I can shoot you. Well, you know I won't do that. Maybe somebody else will, but I won't. So, that's that. Here's the situation. The whole Reb Army is up that road a ways waiting for us, so this is no time for an argument like this. I tell you, we could surely use you fellas. We're now well below half strength. Whether you fight or not, that's up to you. Whether you come along is well, you're coming. You know who we are, what we're doing here, but if you're going to fight alongside us, there's a few things I want you to know. This regiment was formed last summer in Maine. There were 1,000 of us then. There are less than 300 of us now. All of us volunteered to fight for the Union, just as you did. Some came mainly because we were bored at home. Thought this looked like it might be fun. Some came because we were ashamed not to. Many of us came because it was the right thing to do. And all of us have seen men die. This is a different kind of army. If you look back through history, you will see men fighting for pay, for women, for some other kind of loot. They fight for land, power. Because a king leads them, or just because they like killing. We are here for something new. This has not happened much in the history of the world. We are an army out to set other men free. America should be free ground. All of it. Not divided by a line between slave state and free. All the way. From here to the Pacific Ocean. No man has to bow. No man born to royalty. Here we judge you by what you do, not by who your father was. Here you can be something. Here is the place to build a home. But it's not the land. There's always more land. It's the idea that we all have value. You and me. What we're fighting for, in the end, we're fighting for each other. Sorry, I didn't mean to preach. You go ahead. You talk for a while. If you choose to join us, you want your muskets back, you can have them. Nothing more will be said by anybody anywhere. If you choose not to join us, well, you can come along under guard, and when this is all over, I will do what I can to see you get a fair treatment, but for now, we're moving out. Gentlemen, I think if we lose this fight, we lose the war. So if you choose to join us, I'll be personally very grateful.
That clip never fails to move me. There are some details, though, that you need to know. The Civil War was brutal, and it was the last time in American history that troops were conscripted by town. Whole towns of men would enlist together. And in this war, there were whole towns that lost all of their male population, everyone old enough to lie about their age to be enlisted, to those too old to fight. When Chamberlain says, "We've all seen men die," he means it. When he says we started at 1,000 and there are less than 300 of us now, you must remember that he knew those people. He had seen the young people grow up. They were people from his own town, from his own community. See, there's no doubt that some of them were his students, some of them he knew from around town, some he went to church with. He knew the sting of death and when it strikes close to home. He was acknowledging the deserter's pain in a way that only a fellow Civil War soldier could do. And now I need to share kind of the rest of the story. Most of those deserters chose to follow Chamberlain and join the battle. He told them to keep an eye on him and he'd give them a signal when they should move forward and attack. And there he is. He's holding his sword and literally praying that he will be able to read the battle well enough to know when to signal his men. And at that moment, he's hit by a bullet, but it doesn't hurt him. It simply closes his scabbard. Now, a scabbard is a metal sheath for his sword. So what this means is he can't put his sword away even if he wants to. He continues to pray that he'll be able to read the battle well. And at that moment, he's hit by another bullet. This one, though, goes through the heel of his boot. Now, he's not wounded, but hot lead under his heel, and that caused a painful burn. So he starts jumping around, literally trying to cool his heel, and he's still holding his sword, waving that around. The soldiers see that, and what do they think? There's our signal, and they attack. And it proved to be exactly the right moment. The two pieces of the Battle of Gettysburg that turned the tide of the war were Chamberlain's charge and the 1st Minnesota's bayonet charge up Cemetery Ridge. Now, of the 107 soldiers who were turned over to Chamberlain, 102 went with him. And just as he said he would, he testified on behalf of the remaining 5 soldiers at their court-martial trials. Chamberlain went on to serve as the 3-term governor of Maine, and he died peacefully in his home in 1914. And all of Maine went into mourning. Now, I hope you found my comments helpful and the clip meaningful. You probably have some observations of your own about Chamberlain's speech and about his unique use of power. What's important for you to remember is that he was really an ordinary man in the midst of an ordinary life, swept up by events that he could not have predicted. That's how it is for most of us as leaders. The events are not always this momentous, but one thing is certain. Just like Chamberlain, the only things we have to fall back on are our preparation, our values, knowing what's important, and our character. Carry that idea with you in your own leadership development.